Okay, so here we're going to have a look at simplifying ratio. And before I talk about simplifying ratio, it probably makes more sense to talk about what a ratio is. A ratio looks like this. It has two or more numbers in it, and it just describes an unequal sharing of something. So let's for a moment talk about money, in which case this ratio, 1 to 2, would mean that for every £1 one person has, the other person gets £2. Now that means that the person on the right has double, which means this ratio is the same as if one person had £5 and the other person had £10. That's the same ratio because proportionally they still have the same amount compared to each other. That would also be the same as one person having £100 and the other person having £200. All of those examples represent the same ratio because every time the person on the right has the same proportion of money to the person on the left, which in this case is double. But it's not always quite as straightforward as just saying double. Sometimes you might have the ratio 2 to 3. So for every £2 the person on the left has, the person on the right has £3. So it's a bit harder to put into words then because it's not like it's double, but that's what a ratio is. It's an uneven sharing of money. Now, because all of these represent the same thing, sometimes we simplify a ratio by turning it from something quite complicated looking, like this example here, into something quite straightforward looking, like this one at the top. So if I tell you that two people share some, let's make it sweets this time instead of money. They share some sweets so that one person ends up with 12 sweets and the other person ends up with 36 sweets. Then this is the ratio in which they've shared out those sweets. But we can make that ratio look a bit more straightforward by simplifying it. Now to simplify that ratio, what we're going to do is look for numbers that go into both the left-hand side and the right-hand side, and then divide both numbers by whichever number we found. Let me show you what I mean. Both of these numbers are even, which means I can divide them by 2. So if I do that, if I divide the whole thing by 2, then that 12 turns into 6, and the 36 turns into 18. Now they're still both even, so I can do that again. I can divide them by 2. 6 turns into 3, and 18 turns into 9. Now they're not even, but is there something that goes into 3 and 9? 3. I can divide both those by 3. So I'll do that, turning the 3 into 1 and the 9 into 3. So what we found then is that this ratio we started with, 12 to 36, simplifies to 1 to 3. If I just do one more quick example, if I do 15 to 25, again, maybe it's money, maybe it's £15 to £25, or maybe it's sweets or something else. We're looking for a number that goes into both sides of this ratio. They're both multiples of 5 because they end in 5s. So I'll divide those by 5, which turns the 15 into 3 and the 25 into 5. Now, is there anything else I can divide them both by? No, 3 and 5 are both prime numbers, which means I can't divide them by anything except themselves and 1, which means I can't divide them both by the same number to get the ratio to be any simpler. So that's it. That's the simplified version of the ratio there, and that's the simplified version of the ratio here. So what I'm going to do is put a couple of questions up on the screen there, and if you would like, you can pause the video here and have a try at them, because in just a sec I'll talk through the answers. So have a pause if you want to, and I'm going to talk through the answers. So 24 to 36, let's start by dividing them both by 2, because they're both even, which turns the 24 into 12 and the 36 into 18. They're still both even, so I'll divide by 2 again, giving me 6 to 9. And then they're both multiples of 3, so I'll divide them by 3 to turn it into 2 to 3. And then that's as simple as it's going to go, because nothing else goes into both 2 and 3 that I can divide by to make it more simple. Next, let's do 12 to 48. Again, they're both even, so we start with that, giving us 6 to 24. They're both even again, so I'll divide them by 2, giving me 3 to 12. Now, what goes into 3 and 12? Is there anything? Yes, I can divide them both by 3, which turns my 3 into 1 and my 12 into 4. So 12 to 48 is the same ratio as 1 to 4. And that's it. That's simplifying ratio. Hope that helps.